one of the things that people forget about is when the lies get exposed and the people stop listening to your lies, the only way forward from there is power. It's all about power. So at first they try to convince you that you should believe them. Then they lie to you about their true aspirations to convince you and to win your vote. And then when they've exhausted all lies and all credibility and no one believes them anymore, they go to power. And they go right to the heart of it. We want power. And if you don't believe in us enough to elect us and vote it and give us the vote for that power, we're going to take it. Now, there are news stories circulating about that Rikers Island is already preparing for Donald J. Trump to be delivered to them after his sentence in September, after his hearing for his, and some are saying they're probably going to give him a year behind bars just to put him in jail so they can have the photos and they can have the media and they can lock him up before the elections. Do I think that'll happen? Yeah, I actually do. They're going to the point of jailing their opponent, and I think they're probably going to do it. We will wait. I'm not going to do a story on it yet because we have to wait. But I do think they're going to do that because they need the power, and they will not risk him getting into office. And if they need a 5 or 6 or 7 point vote swing in some of these big states, there's no way you can. I mean, if you flub it, if you fortify it, it'll definitely be obvious, and that will cause mayhem. And the Democrats don't have enough power yet to get away with that. Someday they probably will. They don't have the power yet. They tried to, inject some lead in him from 150 yards out. That didn't work. They've tried to bankrupt him. They've tried to bring charges against him for something that literally happened 25 years ago, so they could label him as a racist. That's not going to change many people's minds. People see what's going on. So they are probably going to jail him. Why am I not talking about it? Because it's not a story yet. That's something that might happen. But trust me, I'm keeping my eye on it. I'm keeping my eye on all the things because at this point, you don't know what they're going to do. Well, Kamala Harris just came out, and this is from CNBC, Harris to propose federal ban on corporate price gouging in food and groceries. Now, there's a difference between price gouging and price control. See, with price gouging, and I think price gouging is bad, but I don't think it should be illegal. I don't really have too strong a feeling on it. The reason why is this. Let's say I keep a storage here of 200 units, 200 bottles of water, and I keep emergency food. And I buy that on my own dime. And then there's an emergency, and everybody around me needs water. Should I give it away? If I'm a good person, yes. If I'm a good Christian, if I'm a good person, if I care about my community, I care about my neighbors, I should give it to them. Or at worst, sell it to them for what I bought it for. But that's not the world we live in. A lot of people say, hey, I planned ahead. You didn't. You either pay me what I want for it or I'll keep it to myself. Now that's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that's a world we live in today. But hey, they did have the foresight to actually buy it and have it ahead of time. It depends on what kind of society you live in. Today we don't, because I guarantee you, if you offered it to everybody for free, someone's going to knock on your door and probably clonk you over the head and take the rest of what you have, and then they'll go sell it. That's where we are now. So her proposal isn't about price gouging. What it is this is literal food control. And I don't have to tell you guys, but this has been tried primarily in the Soviet Union, in North Korea, in Venezuela, in Cuba. You kind of see where I'm going with this, right? It never ends well. Because again, remember, in the beginning, it's we're going to try this, and if it doesn't work, they never ever say, we were wrong, we're going to go back to the way it was. They never say that, ever. They say, we did this, and we need to do just a little bit more, and then it'll work, and a little more, and a little more and a little more. And then you have full collapse. Because do you think anybody in the government knows as much about grocery stores and pricing goods than the people that are grocers that price the goods? Do you think people understand better how to price food than the farmers themselves? But once the government comes in to do this, it's end game stuff. Vice President Kamala Harris will propose the first ever federal ban on corporate price gouging in the food industry, her campaign announced. Harris will also pledge that if elected, she will direct the the Justice Department to increase scrutiny of potential mergers between grocers and food producers. Why isn't she doing that now? I mean, she's technically in charge of the country. Well, maybe not technically, because President Potato's still alive, still supposedly the president. She's running things. See, it's not if I'm going to do this and you should elect me so I can keep doing it. No, there's none of that. It's I'm only going to do this if you elect me. See, that's the power. It's about the power, not helping people. They say the ban is part of a broader effect by the Democrats' presidential nominee to respond to voters' ongoing frustration with the high cost of meat and groceries. Hey, I think in the 70s they tried this a little bit. Needless to say, it didn't turn out very well. So first it starts with the groceries. And where it goes from there is companies will say, okay, I have a fixed price on all these goods. Well, these goods are very expensive to make, and they're very hard to make, and I'm not making very much on them. I'm making a little bit on them, but I'm not making enough on them. I'm not going to make them anymore. Quality control will slip. Ingredients will use less and less quality ingredients to make it cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, and thus it'll also be less healthy. Thus it'll probably be worse for the environment because the leftists care about that. And eventually you don't have any choices of everything. You don't have enough quantities of everything. It doesn't stop inflation. You get people that will hoard things. Anybody remember what happened to toilet paper during the bug? During the lockdowns? Do you remember what happened to toilet paper? People were walking out of the store with 4,000 rolls of fucking toilet paper, because they knew, number one, they were going to hoard it. And number two, they could turn around and sell it for more money. There was a black market now. And there was a black market for hand sanitizer. And there was a black market for toilet paper. So what will this cause? Black markets for apples, black markets for fresh fruit, black markets for meat. It's going to be an absolute mess. And then when it doesn't work, because the grocery chains and the food manufacturers stop making the items because they can't make a profit on it or there's not enough demand, then the government says, well, you must make it. And they say we can't afford it because of the price of food, because of the farmers. The farmers need to make a certain amount, and by the time they tell us what to, by the time they sell it to us and you tell us what we can charge, we can't make a profit. And so what do? Then they go to the farmers and they say, you need to sell it to the grocers for this amount. And the farmers say, I can't make enough money on that. I'm not making any money on it. I can do work and not make any money, or I can do no work and not make any money. I'm not going to do any work. And then the government says, no, you must do it. We compel you to do the work. And what do they call that? That's the socialism, communism, totalitarianism, all the isms. That's where she's trying to go. They say in Washington, Vice President Kamala Harris plans to propose the first ever federal ban on corporate price gouging in the food and grocery industries, her campaign announced late Wednesday. There's a big difference between fair pricing in competitive markets and excessive prices unrelated to the costs of doing business, the Harris campaign in a statement said in a statement. Americans can see that difference in their grocery bills. So it's not inflation. It's not the government's fault, everybody. It's those damn grocery stores. It's those damn farmers taking advantage of you. Here's a question for you. Why wasn't there price gouging when there was no inflation? Why isn't there price gouging all the time? Why wasn't there price gouging when Trump was in office and the goods were much cheaper and people made more money? That would be the best time to price gouge, wouldn't it? When Americans had more money in their pockets and the cost of goods was even less expensive because there was no inflation. That would be the best time to gouge people. When's the worst time to gouge people? When prices are really high because of inflation and cost of goods and a lot of unemployed people and people not getting paid as much as they used to because inflation is outpacing incomes. And so now you're telling me that people are making less, inflation is here, and now that's when the groceries and the farmers and the gas companies, that's when they're doing their gouging? That is such a load of bullshit. And what worries me the most is economists know that's bullshit. Normal people know that's absolute crap. Well, most normal people. If you have two brain cells to rub together, you know that's crap. What worries me about Kamala Harris is her father was literally a socialist professor. He was a professor of socialism. You're not going to tell me that from the age of 2, she didn't hear about these oppressive corporations. She got indoctrinated into communism and socialism from the age of 3. You're not going to tell me that's going to rub off. So what's going to happen is she's going to lie to everybody. She's going to make all these promises. Then she's going to get into office. She's going to start doing these policies. And as the country crumbles and is crippled from immigration and inflation and job loss and loss of goods, she's going to tell corporations and the Justice Department, crank it up, get bigger and bigger and control more and control more and control more. It happens slowly, then quickly. Remember this. She's blaming it. Oh, the high gas prices, that's those greedy gas corporations. Oh, the high groceries, that's those greedy grocers and manufacturers. Oh, the high price of cars, that's those greedy car manufacturers. Can you see where this is going? Can you see why she's full of shit? And it's not her, but her whole administration. The whole Democrat basically is this point. And there are people that are like, I don't know, she seems kind of cool and she's chocolate covered and she's a woman, so I'm going to vote for her. And those people you cannot reach anymore. They're gone. And unfortunately, and this is honestly how I believe about it, unfortunately, these are the people that over the next 4 years, everything will fall apart. And you know who she'll blame? She'll blame the Biden administration because he'll be like even more of a vegetable by that point. She'll blame Biden. She'll blame Trump because he started all this off with the bug and blah, blah, blah. She'll blame any remaining Republicans or senators or the House representatives in the Congress. She'll blame them if there's any Republicans left because there's Democrats in supermajority California. California is a supermajority state where everybody in power, governor, mayors, Senate, House, they're all Democrats, supermajority. And when things go wrong, they literally blame like the 5 Republicans in Congress, in the state Congress. They've got to blame somebody else. They can't have accountability because then you might vote them out and then they'll lose power. I know I'm getting kind of off topic, but not really, because this is all how they operate. It sees more and more power, sees the means of production. They say the proposed ban is part of a broader economic policy program, platform. Let me open that link in a new tab. That Democrat presidential nominee plans to unveil Friday at a campaign rally in a battleground North Carolina. Harris also pledged that if elected president, she will direct her administration to increase scrutiny of potential mergers between large supermarkets and food producers, specifically for the risk that the proposed merger would raise grocery prices for consumers, her campaign said. Well, if you have food producer and supermarket merging, that's usually to save cost cutting. Usually. When companies merge, a lot of times it's to save one company. Sometimes it's to bring them all under one fold and actually be more productive and actually save some money. Now, yes, that can be a problem if they become a monopoly, but we don't have that problem here in the United States with grocery stores. The package of regulatory proposals is one of the Harris campaign's earliest efforts to outline an economic platform that is independent of President Joe Biden's agenda. Before Biden abruptly dropped out of the race, before Biden was abruptly kicked out of the race, well, they say dropped, we know the truth, in July and endorsed Harris, he'd spent more than a year campaigning for re-election and blaming corporate greed for consumer price driven higher by inflation. Read that again slowly and pretend you're not retarded. He was campaigning for re-election and blaming corporate greed for consumer prices driven higher by inflation. This is from CNBC. I don't know if they know they did this. They just gave the answer for why the prices were higher. Inflation. And Biden was blaming corporate greed. That is the communist socialist bull. Harris's plan still sits firmly within the overall Biden approach to regulation, however, which has prioritized consumer protections across a range of industries and sued to block several massive corporate mergers. In March, the White House launched the Strike Force on Unfair and Illegal Pricing, a joint initiative between the Justice Department and the Federal Trade Commission. On Friday, Harris will single out the meat industry, saying that the soaring meat prices have accounted for a larger part of Americans' high grocery bills, even as meat processing companies registered record-breaking profits following the bug, according to the statement from her campaign. Number one, provide some data. Number two, if grocery prices go up 40% from inflation, because of inflation, then $1.40 is worth $1. Or in other words, to have as much money as $1 from 3 or 4 years ago, you need to have $1.40. Now, if I'm paying somebody to do work for me, and like 4 years ago, I would have paid them $10 an hour. Before inflation, after inflation, I have to pay them $14 an hour. Do you understand what I'm saying? So if I used to pay them 10, but now I pay them 14 because of inflation, they're now making more money. Isn't that crazy how it works? The value of the money is not anymore, but the dollar amount of the money is more. So more than likely, these meat packing companies and these meat companies have to charge more because of inflation, which means on their books, they're showing they're making more money, but in reality, it's not worth any more money. The dollar amount might be higher, but the value is lower. So it's very easy to go after these corporations and say, oh, you greedy capitalists, you've got record high dollar amounts that you're making. Yes, but that dollar amount now is worth 30% less than it was 3 or 4 years ago. So if you match that and take out inflation, they're probably breaking relatively close to even. Now, are there some companies that could be trying to make a little extra here and there that are bad guys that are taking advantage of the situation? Yes. And you know who can control that marketplace? The consumer. If red meat gets too expensive, they buy chicken. If chicken gets too expensive, maybe they buy bacon or eggs. And then if the bacon and eggs are a little expensive, maybe they buy red meat and milk. But what you're seeing now is that red meat is expensive and chicken is expensive and eggs are expensive and milk is expensive and bacon is expensive and bread is expensive. You see where we're going with this. Everything is more expensive. So yeah, they may show more money on the books. That doesn't mean they have more money. Look at the stock market. It's up 30% over the last couple of years. Look at the value of the dollar. It's down by 30% over the last 3 years. I'm not an economist. You just have to be not rich to understand this concept. And our own government and the own people in power don't understand this. And the mouth breathers that are drooling on their shoes saying, we need to vote for Kamala because she's brown and a lady, and I want to be a moment in history. Can you afford groceries or gas? Or can we not maybe be stupid? But they can't help it. And those mouth breathers will never understand until it's too late. It is up to the rest of us reasoning, intelligent, smart people to try to save the dummies from hurting themselves. That's what we're trying to do. And in the meantime, we're called all sorts of names, and we're the assholes, and we're whatever. We're all the isms and phobes because we're trying to save the country from collapse. It's just unbelievable. They say the Democratic presidential nominee will also unveil proposals intended to bring down consumer costs in 2 other sectors where corporations have aggressively exercised their pricing powers: prescription drugs and housing. So she's going to come in and try to take control of prescription drugs and the housing market. Oh, the geniuses in our government, they now understand farming and groceries and gas production and oil drilling and coal mining and fracking and prescription drugs and housing. They know everything better than all the industry experts, everybody. They're so smart. Have you ever been to a DMV that was awesome? Have you ever been to a DMV that was quick and on the ball? They got you in, they got you out. You needed your driver's license, and they quickly helped you prepare the paperwork. Or did you wait in a really long time only to get called up and you forgot a document? So go back over to this aisle and wait 3 hours. And then when you do that, go over there for your picture for 2 hours. Then come back. Oh, you forgot your proof of registration. Got to go home and get that. We could look it up on our computer, but we're not going to. You're going to tell me that the people in charge of the DMV are going to be in charge of our farms and our grocery stores and our gas pricing and our economic policy and consumer goods. This is stupid. I could use many stronger words than stupid. But this is the hubris of people like Harris and the government and the Democrats. Instead of opening the market up and letting it correct themselves, because that doesn't give them power, you see, they need to come in and crank all the knobs and fiddle with all the bells and whistles, because we're smarter than these damn corporations trying to make all greedy money. They're going to destroy it all. That's what we're trying to fight against, not the lady with the brown skin. Harris's speech will come 2 days after her opponent, former President Donald Trump, gave his own economic policy speech in North Carolina, where he blamed Harris for the high price of consumer goods. That's not what he said. He said the inflation under the Biden-Harris. They're not reporting that accurately. He's saying the Biden and Harris. Now, here's the truth of it. Can Trump lower prices? Kinda, but no. Trump can go out there and remove regulation and let the machine of corporations and capitalism get running without as many things to worry about, without as many regulations, which will create more jobs, which will produce more GDP, which will mean we don't have to spend as much of our government money on government employees and buying oil from Saudi Arabia and all the other things, right? It'll grease the wheels, but it's not going to, like the inflation, and I'm going to talk about this next, but inflation only goes one direction, really. It goes somewhere between 0 and a lot. You never really too much now see negative inflation. So Trump can only do so much. He's not going to fix the economy. The economy is still going to go kaboom under Trump. It'll still go kaboom under Harris, but it just won't go as bad, or it'll go worse under Harris, I should say. Trump said, you're paying for the price for Harris's liberal extremism at the gas pump, at the grocery counter, and on your mortgage bill, Trump said at Nashville. Nearly a month into her campaign, Harris has already erased Trump's lead over Biden in national and swing state polls. But Trump still maintains his long-standing advantage over Democrats when it comes to which candidate voters believe would be best for the economy. And let's see, I'd pulled this story up, but New York Times wants money from me, and I'm not going to give them money. Anyway, but the headline is Harris is set to lay out an economic message light on detail. They don't have any details. That's the problem. They never have details. Just give me power and I'll fix it. And then you give them power and they blame everybody else in the world for why they didn't fix it. And to really fix it, we need more power. But give us just a little bit more power and then we can fix it. And they don't fix it, but they need more power until we have all the power. Then we'll finally fix it. It's a tale as old as time. And what they rely upon is uninformed idiots to give them so much power to fix things that eventually the idiots have no say anymore. It doesn't matter what you think or what you want. They don't need your vote anymore because they will cement themselves in power.